Hello everyone and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from Sierra T Designs, and today I have a beautiful messy oxide floral card for you. Let's jump right in. So I took the Hello Lovely stamp set from Concord and Ninth. I'm going to show it to you on the screen right there. And this just screamed a perfect stamp set to do this kind of technique. Now, I struggle a bit with a messy technique. I have a tendency towards staying in the lines and not doing anything that's a bit messy or a bit different. And so this was a very freeing and fun card to make. A girlfriend of mine, Brenda, brought up talking about oxides, and I decided to give it a try using oxides for this kind of a technique. So I cut down a piece of Arches 140-pound cold press paper, and I cut it down to a 5" by 3 7/8 inch because I want to mat it with a black piece of paper later. And I love how matting white cardstock on then I use a white card base as well. It just gives the color a bit of a pop. So I took my Versafine Clair Nocturne ink, which is a waterproof ink, and because the Arches cold press paper has a lot of texture to it, it does take a few stampings. And sometimes I find you have to move your magnet too because it gets in the way a bit. At least I have that problem. With my Mini Misty, I find my one magnet tends to get in the way of me getting a good stamp. So sometimes that's just move the magnet out of the way if you find that you're not getting a great stamp. And I also have the Lawn Fawn stamp shammy. I'm going to use it throughout this process because it's just really easy to clean off any kind of water-based ink, which the Distress Oxide Ink is. It's super helpful. So I took the big floral out of the stamp set, and I am inking that up with Picked Raspberry Oxide Ink. And I'm giving it a good stamp. And you'll see here, this is where the magnet was in the way. So I spray it with my Distress sprayer to kind of create that watercolor effect. And when I stamp it down, the magnet's in the way, so I don't get much of an impression on the top of the flower, and so I just pulled the magnet out. And then I'm going to ink it up again. Now looking back at this, I kind of wish that I had actually stamped the pink flower in the end. I stumbled a bit through this card just because it's something I'm really not used to. I don't do a messier look. That's not really my style. But it was a lot of fun, actually. And it taught me some things about my crafting style and how I generally tend to lean towards a very rigid coloring. So hopefully in the future I'm going to create a few more cards with a bit of a messier watercolor style, because watercolor is just stunning that way. So then I took this leaf shape out of the stamp set, and I'm going to put it on all of the bigger leaves throughout this bouquet. And I'm going to use Mowed Lawn for this leaf. And I also take my stamp chamois and just take off the bottom so that it's not on top of the pink flower as much. Although I wasn't really concerned about that because I am trying for a messier look. So I did pretty well on this side of the flower, but when I do the next side of the flower with that same Mowed Lawn, I'm not going to wipe it off, and I really should have. I didn't really like how much green ended up on top of the pink, but with what this is, with it being a messy thing, I am trying to make it a little bit messy, and I will get better as we go along with this card. But to start with here, I like right there on top of that petal, how there's quite a bit of the green. I kind of wish I had wiped it off a bit better than I ended up doing. But that's okay. I mean, it's meant to be messy. It's meant to be different. And that's perfectly okay. So I have another, I think, two more leaves. Oh no, maybe just one. One more big leaf to do with the Mowed Lawn, and then I move on to the smaller leaves. And I have a bunch of different colors going on in this one. I used Spice Marmalade, Picked Raspberry, Pine Needles, Cracked Pistachio, Wilted Violet, Mermaid, Lagoon, Squeezed Lemonade, and Mowed Lawn. So I used quite a few colors, and you will notice they are all very bright colors. There's the Cracked Pistachio. I find when you're doing something that's a bit out of your comfort zone or out of your normal style, it's better to go back to something that you love. And I love bright colors. They are one of the reasons I got into creating. Really, I love watching them move on the paper and watching them together, and I love how warm and fun they are for me. So I did go back to a very bright color palette for this card because of that. Because I found that it made it easier for me to do something that's not in my wheelhouse. But I think that in crafting, we need to try different things. I actually have a card coming up for you guys here pretty quick, and it's pretty much all paper. It's all, oh, I just forgot the word for paper, you know. Yeah. Patterns. There we go. Sorry. Oh boy. I've got I have a whole drawer full of pattern paper, and I pretty much never use it. So I'm trying really hard to get out of what I normally do and create things that are different to my normal style so that I can evolve my style into something that's more my own and more what I hope to create down the road. So that's kind of what my thought process was here. I really wanted to try something that was a bit different and a bit looser, if that's the right word for it. I find that I can get a little bit overwhelmed sometimes with some designs because I get overthinking it, and I don't just sit down and just create and have fun. I kind of get a little sucked into being overwhelmed by a lot of products. So this was a really fun card to do, and this stamp set was just perfect for this style of card. So I think that you guys will have to let me know what you think of this card, but I think that it turned out pretty great, really. Have you ever done a messy watercolor style of card? Is that something you guys would get into? I have noticed actually just recently Amy R. from Prairie Paper and Ink and Cassie Trask just did some really beautiful messy watercolors. Now they did ones that were actually watercolored on the paper and kind of messy. I haven't tried that style yet. I will, but I haven't done it yet. I'll link both of those videos down below. If you guys don't know who they are amazing crafters and huge inspirations to me personally. So check them out if you haven't already. That would be amazing. So here we have Mermaid Lagoon, and I took it on the smaller flowers. They're the littler versions of the big flower, and I just stamped it down. And by this point, I've gotten a lot more comfortable with the messier look, like just picking an area, not getting the stamp perfectly down, and being perfectly okay with that. Nature is very beautiful, and it's very perfectly imperfect, and I think that that's something that I personally need to learn from, that it's okay that not every line is exactly straight, and that not every color is perfectly in its lines, and so on and so forth. You can just admire the beauty in the piece without getting stuck on the imperfections. And that's something I need to learn in my own crafting style. So this card really lent itself for that lesson for me. So here I have Wilted Violet, and I'm going to put it on that one bloom that's a bit bigger than the little blooms that I did in blue, and stamp it down, and you can see it. They're mixing in with the pink, they're mixing in with each other, and that's okay. It's just doing its own thing, and it actually turned out quite pretty. Here I have Squeezed Lemonade, and I'm doing the same thing on every one. I put the ink down, I take my Distress sprayer, I squeeze the nozzle a little bit, not too much because I don't want a whole bunch of water. I don't want it to stray out of its lines too far, but I do want it to move a bit with the colors that are around it. And I do that with every one of these images. And it's quite repetitive, but it's pretty enjoyable. You put on some good music and you just stamp away. I do actually use an acrylic block when I get to the really little leaves, but otherwise I used my Mini Misty for everything, including the sentiment. So here we have Spiced Marmalade. That one flower at the top there is going to be an orange. And I kind of stuck with the rainbow array of colors. Not totally, I have extra greens in there, of course, because there's quite a bit of greenery in this beautiful bouquet, but I kind of just jumped around within the colors of the rainbow because I really enjoy that. You'll see with a few cards I have coming up that they're pretty much all inked in a bit of a rainbow color theme. So you'll see how much I really enjoy the rainbow colored theme. But here, yeah, so this little leaf, there's two, and I did not spray it every time because I kind of ended up just doing like a ghosting effect almost a little bit, as well as the watered down distressed effect, because it's such a little stamp and it doesn't even line up perfectly with the greenery, which is great for this technique. So you'll see here I don't even really water it add water to every time. I ink it up and I stamp it down as near to the leaves as I can get with how the stamp is, and I just keep doing that over and over until all of the greenery is full. And that was this will finish off the greenery color. And I did miss one of the flowers that I did in yellow. I actually was just looking at the card and noticed that I'd missed that. So I'll probably go back later and re-stamp that one because I did miss it. And that just adds a little bit of extra yellow. It's right beside the one yellow one on the right hand side there. But yeah, so but you know, it's okay. Like, I could leave it without any color and it's still okay. It's just different. You know, like it doesn't even look like it's out of place. Whereas if I had colored these in perfectly, it would look like I had missed something. So here, because of the first stamping and all of that green on top, I actually am going to re-stamp the picked raspberry on top of the main flower, just to get it to be a bit brighter. I kind of want that to still be even though they're all bright colors, I want that to be the focal image of the whole card, is that big pink bloom that's just stunning. So I am going to stamp it down. I think I do 2 or 3 times just to get a really rich pink color. Although with the oxides they do fade back, and when you add water they do get a bit of a chalky effect, which I just think lends itself really well to this card. If you wanted it to be a more vibrant color, I would have maybe suggest doing the Distress inks instead of the Distress oxides, because they don't quite fade back as much and they stay a bit more vibrant. So for my sentiment, I'm going for something just as no nonsense, just as bold as my colors and my floral. So it's just thanks. Straight to the point, no nonsense needed, just a great thanks card. I think it stands on its own. It didn't need any sub-sentiments or extra sentiments. It just says thanks, and that's okay. So I'm going to take my Nuvo Deluxe glue, and here you're going to see that I am going to mat it. So I have a piece of 110-pound black cardstock, and the black cardstock is cut to 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And then I'm going to place that, I'm going to glue it down on a white card base, which will also, it is an A2 base, so it is the 5 1/2 by 4 1/4 base. I'm going to mat that there. And I tend to have a thing with matting my cards. I love how it looks. I love that it adds that just extra pop. Rather than the white on white, I think you would lose a bit of the splendor of this card had I not matted it. So, and I lean towards matting everything. That's just kind of how I do. And I pretty much always use white card bases just because I find it easier to write in. Then I took some pretty pink Posh sparkling clear gems and my crystal katana, and I just kind of spread them across the card. Like you guys know, no rhyme or reason really to where I place them. I just place them across the card wherever it excites me, I guess, wherever it feels right. There's no real good or wrong, like right or wrong answer to that. It's just whatever you prefer. I mean, I personally, I don't ever use even numbers. Even if I'm creating a bit of a pattern, I still don't generally use even numbers. That's just my rule of thumb. I stay with uneven numbers so that your eyes aren't trying to create a pattern out of what I've placed down. I just place a bunch down, and then I glued them down with that same Nuvo Deluxe glue, because it's a beautiful liquid glue. And it gives you time to shift things around if they didn't quite end up where you thought they were going to. That is one thing I love about a liquid glue, is it gives you time to move it around and play with it till you enjoy it. And I'm loving that little bead container in the corner there. I have all my sequins organized out into that little container into like little themes. Some are colored, some are gems, some are sequins. And I just place them all in there, and then I keep the packages separate so that I know what the names are of all of the little gems. So yeah, guys, that's the card for today. I hope that you got inspired or learned something, or you're going to try this. If you do try this, I would love to see it. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I post every Monday. Thanks for all the likes, all the comments, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye-bye.